It's the end of May in Inari, and the ice hasn't quite disappeared. The average annual temperature here isn't much above freezing point. In Europe's far north, primeval forests still exist. The trees are small, gnarled, and supple. Petri Matus is on his way through this old-growth forest. If it weren't for him, these trees would have been cleared many years ago. Lumber companies had their eye on them back before the first big protest action in Inari. This is what a healthy forest here looks like, with reindeer calves roaming about. Reindeer mothers spend their last 2 weeks in enclosed areas before giving birth.
Couple just born in the yesterday evening. I earmarked those, like there is one.
Oh, great.
So I catch those and put my earmark. Then I open that gate and they go back to the freedom.
Petri Matus likes that his animals have an appetite for freedom. They develop better and don't cost him much. He's grateful to the forest that sustains his animals.
Oh, this is about 12 hours old. So not very old.
Every family of reindeer herders has its own distinctive ear marker. The procedure doesn't appear entirely painless.
The mom is coming over there. It's recognized the old baby sound. And it's amazing when you listen those, everything is same, but they recognize own baby and mom. And as you see, there is not coming blood.
It's not coming blood, no?
No, only sometimes maybe a little bit if they are doing like this.
So you don't think it hurts them very much?
No, no, I don't think so, because it's not like ladies, they put the earrings in.
Old-growth forests are woodlands that have not been significantly disturbed by human activity. And these could be left untouched. After all, there's enough timber elsewhere in northern Europe. The lichen hanging on the branches serves a special function. What's felled here takes a very long time to grow back.
As you see, old trees, this is maybe 400 or 500 years old. There's this black lichen on the trees, what reindeer can eat in the winter. It's not only the trees, because when it's windy or a lot of snow on the trees. As you see, there's black lichen also on the land, and it's coming top of the snow, and reindeer can eat this if there's a lot of snow and snow is hard.
Without this forest, the reindeer would struggle to get through the winter. Luckily, the herders have received international help.
Greenpeace come here and help us, and they told the biggest company who buy the Finnish paper, and the Sami people and Sami reindeer herders, they have a problem, this forest cutting, because it's old forest is really important.
In Finland, authorities were ignoring Petri Matus and his fellow herders. Then Greenpeace raised the possibility of a boycott. That was back in 2003. A large cargo ship had been docking each week in the northern German city of Lübeck with timber from Finland's vast forests. Its cargo turned out to have come from some of Europe's last remaining primeval forests. The supply chain could be traced back to Inari. This timber was destined to be turned into toilet paper or glossy magazines in Germany. In Inari, A small delegation of traditional reindeer herders was waiting to show evidence of fresh felling. They didn't need to go far. This tree was a few hundred years old, as far as Sveaskog could tell from the rings without using a magnifying glass. That's how close the rings were together.
Varmaan saman verran vielä. Varmaan 200 vuotta eikä ollut tämän paksumpi.
The State Forestry Authority has promised to protect certain areas, but they are felling trees elsewhere. As a result, the forest is disappearing.
The Indigenous Sami are known to be rather reserved, and not just in front of the camera. But this was the last straw. At 5 on Friday, the sounds of logging no longer rang out in the ancient forest. Getting hold of footage of loggers at work wasn't easy. This is Sveaskog 20 years later in the same forest that was due to be cut down. For many years now, she's been teaching young people how to look after reindeer, and she has 6 grandchildren of her own.
The forest as it was inherited from our ancestors, it's our inheritance, even if the land is owned by the state. And well, it's home. Who would sell his home for money?
As she talks, she slips into her role as grandmother.
I was just going to say that one thing I would be doing in a forest like this without something work to do would be to play with my grandchildren. So look, there's a hole in that tree. There must be a bird in it to them. And look how big that tree is. Can you reach your hands round it? And so then look, who lives in that hole under that tree?
For the Sami, the forest is a door to the natural world and a look back into their past.
Do you know, it was your grandfather who cut this tree.
In this archival footage, Kalevi Padar shows the way to a spot where the first snow had covered the signs of fresh felling. 10 years earlier, the state-owned forestry company had cut down a few trees here, but left many standing.
They didn't even tell us beforehand. They just sent in a forest harvester. The remains will be cleared with fires. There won't be anything left for reindeer here for dozens of years.
The winter in Lapland, or Sapmi as it's called by the Indigenous Sami people, starts at the end of September. That's when things start to get tough for the reindeer that roam free here. Finding food is a struggle. 20 years later, there's been no further logging here, and the European Union is keeping a watchful eye that it stays that way. For Sami reindeer herder Kalevi Padar, that remains a triumph, but not one that he boasts about. The Sami often face defeat in their conflicts with the authorities. Back then, their cause was helped by the fact that major German publishers began refusing to buy timber from the ancient forests here. When Kalevi Padar walks through the forest, he doesn't just see the trees. He always has his reindeer and their needs in mind, spotting things many others might miss.
This small lichen grows on birches, vital when there's nothing else.
And it takes time for new lichen to grow back. Longer than a human lifespan, he says. More like a century.
Back then they stopped clear-cutting, and we didn't let up. There were more campaigns, and that's why it's been quiet here for years. You can see it. We don't need to keep our animals in enclosures anymore. They can roam freely through the woods, even in winter.
And then he looks out over the land. He knows that a big mining company wants to look for ore here. As soon as one threat is averted, the next appears on the horizon. But he refuses to give up. Our journey continues in Northern Europe. From Inari in Finland, we will head to the forests just across the border from Muonio, and then on to Igijaure in Swedish Lapland. Our journey will end in Norway, in Kautokeino. At first glance, Sweden looks like one big forest. No other European country has so many trees. They cover close to 3/4 of its landmass. But the gaps become more visible the further north you go. In many places, it looks more like a lunar landscape, such as here close to Muonio, on the border between Sweden and Finland, nearly 200 kilometers above the Arctic Circle. Environmental activist Karolina Karlsson blames Swedish timber companies. Greenpeace put signs up that read, "Do not cut."
When you drive around here, you see one clear-cut area after another. And as for what they've replanted, it bears no comparison. All the trees are the same age and are planted in long rows. This is a very aggressive type of forestry management. These are tree plantations, not forests.
We can see what the environmental activist is talking about 40 kilometers further south. In other countries, individual trees tend to be selected for felling. In Sweden, it's more industrial.
Clear cutting is a very rigid system. Everything, and I mean everything, is felled and removed. 30 to 40 years later, they thin out what they've planted. This works in opposition to nature rather than in harmony with it.
A single forestry worker in a harvester can clear as much forest as 24 loggers could in the past. The machine's enormous tires leave behind packed soil and deep ruts in the ground. It's no surprise that it takes many years for anything to grow back. Here, too, there were plans to clear huge areas of forest belonging to Sweden's state-owned forestry company, Sveaskog. But as in Inari, reindeer herders and environmental activists joined forces to stop it from going ahead, with patrols and months-long demonstrations. The company, with its upscale headquarters in downtown Stockholm, ultimately gave in to the pressure, and the man at the helm bowed out. We meet the new CEO, Erik Brandsma. In our interview, he accepts that mistakes were made.
We previously haven't managed that conflict in an optimal way, and there have been situations where we have not advanced the possibilities for the reindeer herders to practice their profession.
Back to the forests owned by Sveaskog. 4,000 reindeer roam in the Muonio Sami herding district on the border with Finland. In summer, there's enough food for them, and in the autumn, the semi-wild animals like to eat mushrooms. We meet Hans Holma, the chairman of the local reindeer herding cooperative. Does he believe the forestry company's new promises? At the moment, he says, no logging is taking place, and he hopes it will stay that way. It's high time, he adds.
Of course, we hope that things will improve, that there will be a new course. Erik Brandsma has come to see us up here, But to be honest, it's 30 years too late. Most of the old-growth forests have disappeared.
Winter in Lapland is a tough time, and the changing climate and erratic weather patterns are making conditions even tougher. Hans Holma has prepared as best he can. He regularly gives his herds supplementary food. Lichen contains carbohydrates. In March and April, that's often all the animals have to eat in the wild.
We sort of have to decrease the volumes that we take out. If we want to have lichens in place, if we want to create corridors, create shelter and protection for the reindeer during the whole year, this has, of course, an impact.
At least for now, there's peace. The do not cut signs are being taken down.
We've saved about 150 trees or so in 13 forest areas. These are trees that Sveaskog was going to cut down.
Will the trees now have to do without your protection?
Yes, now it's up to Sveaskog.
Our colleagues from Greenpeace seem to sort of have enough trust at the moment that they left the area and focus on other issues. And I think that's a good sign.
Spent their evening somewhere else.
Yeah.
The Swedish forestry company is also taking concrete steps. Sveaskog has announced a 20% cut in future annual felling. Lake Igejaure is in a forest near Arjeplog in Swedish Lapland. The Luokta Mavas reindeer cooperative takes its animals here to graze in winter. Sveaskog was going to log here too, but so far hasn't. Reindeer herder Britta-Stina Siago leads us into her forest, but it's not actually hers. It's owned by others who can do pretty much what they want.
In Sweden you can cut down everything, except for what's around the Stone Age encampments of our ancestors. The forest harvesters aren't allowed to directly encroach on them.
Since time immemorial, the forests around Igejaure have served as winter pasture for the reindeer. Archaeologists can confirm that.
This was probably the site of a fire pit and a traditional Sami tent, a kota. The traces we've left behind are subtle. With a trained eye, all you can see is a stone. The forestry industry has changed all that within just one generation. The intervention has changed the entire landscape. The trees have been felled and everything's turned upside down. A forest that has grown over 1,000 years just disappears.
The longer you spend with the Sami, the more you come to see the world and the forest through their eyes. At first glance, this lodgepole pine plantation is just a dry coniferous forest that's been very densely planted. But for Britta-Stina Siago, it's deeply troubling.
This is the worst kind of tree when it comes to reindeer herding. It's an invasive species from North America. It's been widely planted here on our winter pastures. These trees have lots of needles, which thickly carpet the forest floor. It's an alien body. It acts like a barrier. The reindeer avoid these plantations.
Sveaskog has now stopped planting Pinus contorta, its Latin name. While it grows 40% faster than other pine species, it's a lot more vulnerable to high winds. It also blocks out a lot of light. You can see how it stunts other forest growth just by looking at this little tree.
It's 26 or 27 years old, but it's still so small because the contorta pine has taken away its light.
If Britta Stina Siago could wish for any house, perhaps it would be this one here, with its panoramic views. But it has a drawback. The entire land around the house belongs to the state, and Sveaskog is responsible for managing this land. There may be a truce for now, but if you tend to think in centuries like the Sami people, just the thought of clear-cutting is hard to bear. And how long will the peace last? Maybe Sveaskog hasn't changed its ways that much.
That is Igijaure, the lake. Sveaskog plans to log the whole area around the lake. An old Sami woman used to live here. She was almost 90 and she sold her house because she couldn't cope with clearing the snow. A German IT expert bought it. He lives here for part of the year. I told him last year what might happen. That Sveaskog could clear-cut the land right around the house. He was very disappointed and outraged.
Right now, it's still possible to walk through the woodland to get to the water. And what would a lunch break in the forest be without a campfire, started with the help of birch bark? It has the advantage of burning when it's damp. And then there's spring water, drunk out of a cup made from the thicker part of a tree where there was a knothole. And a battered coffee pot that has obviously seen many a campfire.
We're in an old pine forest that isn't too dense. There's lichen on the forest floor and hanging from the trees.
The Sami would like to see this kind of forest everywhere, but for decades, Sveaskog has been felling all trees that reach a certain age. What's left is a patchwork of primeval forest.
Only 15% is left of the entire old forest. The rest has been cut down. What's left are little islands, oases that aren't connected. And these small areas of ancient forest are, of course, especially precious.
At the moment, there aren't any animals grazing in the lakeside forest. They're still in the highlands, the Swedish fjäll. The reindeer eat what they can find there: grasses, bushes, mushrooms. In late spring, Britta Stina Siago's reindeer intuitively find their way to the higher ground and back to the valley where they were born. In late autumn, their sense of orientation takes them back to their winter grazing pastures, to Igijaure. It would be ideal if the animals could actually find food here, and the cooperative didn't have to buy commercial fodder to get them through the winter. But there's just not enough in these desolate woods. After hearing all that, you might think that Sveaskog CEO Erik Brandsma would be well advised to come here too, if he really wants to restore faith in his company. We're headed now to Kautokeino. One day, it could look like this across Lapland. If the forest can no longer provide enough food due to unpredictable weather patterns and invasive species. These are scenes from Norway and the ancestral home of the Indigenous Sami people. Reindeer actually don't like getting too close to humans, especially pregnant animals. We've reached northern Norway. Reindeer have been living here from time immemorial, more or less independently. But now, more and more of them need to be fed.
old people say the reindeers are gonna feed me. I'm not gonna feed the reindeer. But now it's the opposite. Now we have to feed the reindeer.
There's a frenzy when father and daughter open the sacks of food. The fodder is made from local grass and compressed in the factory.
This is the result of climate changing. We need to feed them. You can see they are in good shape because we fed them all the winter already.
Here you can see the fate that might be awaiting other regions. The Arctic is warming 4 times faster than the rest of the world.
Because you can see the reindeer behind here, 90% of those are pregnant females. In spring, May, they will get 1 calf each, if we are lucky.
Meanwhile, word has gotten out about the free lunch. A reindeer from a neighboring cooperative has snuck in. Property is sacred here. Giving back a stray animal is a matter of honor. The reindeer gets tied up like a parcel for the journey back to its own herd. Then the reindeer herder explains.
Look at the reindeer's right ear.
Yeah.
It has a different pattern than our reindeer.
Yeah.
If the old-growth forests could be saved, then these reindeer would have a chance of continued freedom and of surviving in the wilderness. Surely, it's worth a try.
The entire forest gone, cut down against our will. It feels unjust. And what will become of the wood? 80% of it will be used up very quickly. Most of it will be turned into paper.